This is VOA Africa.
Good evening, I'm Esther Gido-Ewart. It's Thursday, December 26th. This is Africa 54. Africa 54 takes a closer look at the West African Muslim country that can't get enough of the Christmas season. Will the installation of security cameras in Somalia help deter terrorist attacks in Mogadishu? We'll explain. And in Washington, D.C., highlighting the importance of cultural diplomacy in U.S. foreign policy. Senegal, home to the largest mosque in West Africa and with a 95% Muslim population, is widely recognized for its strict adherence to Islam. But each year at Christmas, streets and city squares are bright with holiday lights and storefronts are filled with tinsel and Christmas trees. So how do the Senegalese people reconcile their devotion to Islam with their love of the Christian holiday? Anika Hamashila explains from Dakar.
Street vendors carrying skull caps and prayer beads weave in and out of traffic in Dakar's busy Sandaga market. In this Muslim-majority country, taxi drivers often pull over to pray on the sidewalk, and mosques are found just about everywhere, even on the beach. But come December, Senegal's vendors are also seen peddling tinsel, ornaments, and Christmas trees.
It's mostly Muslims who buy these because we're in a secular country. Everyone is the same. Even during Muslim holidays, Christians participate. It's the same for Christmas, where Muslims will buy Christmas trees as well as the Christians. But it's mostly Muslims.
Christmas decorations light up Dakar's city squares and storefronts. Restaurants and bakeries are decked out for the Christian holiday. Senegal's Christians also celebrate Muslim holidays such as Eid al-Adha, the festival of the sacrifice, known as Tabaski.
We're a big family. Everyone is here. Christians celebrate Tabaski like Muslims celebrate Christmas. It shows that today in Senegal, peace comes first, and there's no difference between the two religions. Each has their principles, but respects the other's beliefs.
Even staff dress for Christmas. Abdou Kadre Diop has fond memories of when his parents would take him to sit on Sene's lap.
It demonstrates the social cohesion that we have in our country. We're united. We're one. When Muslims celebrate their holidays, the Christians participate and vice versa. It demonstrates the social cohesion and the strength of Senegal.
Muslim Senegal's Christmas is limited to the commercial and secular. It is still a celebration of the Christian holiday and the unity of this West African nation. Annika Hammerschlag for VOA News, Dakar.
Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan said Thursday that his country is likely to send troops to Libya following a request from Tripoli. The administration expects to present legislation to its parliament in January on deploying troops to Libya. Ankara signed two separate accords a month ago with Libya's internationally recognized government of Fayez al-Sarraj, one on security and military cooperation and another on maritime boundaries in the eastern Mediterranean Sea. But the interior minister in the Tripoli-based government suggested Thursday that no official request had been made yet. Libya's government of national accord is still fending off a month-long offensive by Khalifa Haftar's forces in eastern Libya, which has received support from Russia, Egypt, and the United Arab Emirates. However, Moscow is voicing concerns over a possible Turkish military deployment to Libya. There is sad news to report from Burkina Faso, where insurgents on Tuesday killed 35 civilians, mostly women, after attacking a military outpost in northern Soum province. Troops repelled the militants and seized a large number of weapons and motorbikes. The army says that 80 militants and 7 members of the security forces were killed during fighting. President Roch Marc Kabore has declared 2 days of national mourning in response to the attack. Burkina Faso continues to stagger from a homegrown insurgency that has been amplified by a spillover from its northern neighbor, Mali. Attacks over the past year have killed hundreds and forced nearly 1 million people from their homes. Somalia is installing security cameras on major roads in the capital, Mogadishu, for the first time in an effort to deter ongoing attacks by the Al-Shabaab terrorist group. Residents and business owners are welcoming the stepped-up security. But as Mohammed Sheikh Noor reports, some analysts doubt the cameras will be enough to stop the attacks.
Somali authorities in December began installing security cameras on major roads in Mogadishu. The closed-circuit television cameras mounted at key intersections are meant to deter frequent attacks by the Al-Shabaab terrorist group.
These surveillance cameras will reduce the terrorist attacks. They will deter them from carrying out attacks because the cameras are tracking them. Therefore, our people are quite happy about the move and deem it a step taken forward.
Mogadishu residents and business owners have welcomed the cameras in the city's business center, which the Islamist militants often target.
These cameras deter anyone from committing a crime. Even ordinary thieves avoid cameras like these because they're afraid to be caught on camera.
But political analyst Hassan Barisi says the cameras will only deter terrorists who fear getting caught.
But the others who have been seriously brainwashed or heavily indoctrinated ones will not be avoiding anything, because in the end of the day, they think that they will go to heaven.
Barisi warns the cameras themselves will need security, as Al-Shabaab is likely to target them for destruction. The terrorist group in May ordered Mogadishu businesses with cameras to remove them, or else they would attack. Somali authorities vow to closely monitor the new security cameras.
A
special team is manning this system which the government established, but I do not want to go into details as it is a sensitive matter.
The cameras will also be less useful at night when Al-Shabaab terrorists often attack. To further deter the Islamist militants, Somali authorities say they are also training and deploying more police and intelligence officers in the capital. Mohammed Sheikh Noor for VOA News, Mogadishu.
The United Nations has destroyed over 1 million explosive devices in South Sudan since 2004. That includes landmines and cluster munitions scattered across the country from decades of conflict. The United Nations Mine Action Service says the unexploded ordnance poses a threat to farmers and villagers. Sheila Pony reports from Magwa County, South Sudan.
Palamina Eli and her friend Mary Moyoyo Joseph were collecting tall grass near the village a year ago to cover the roof of her home when Joseph stepped on a landmine.
I had no idea there was something there. I only remember a dull sound like dim, and the next thing I knew I was on the ground and in terrible pain.
Mary Joseph is one of more than 3,500 people in South Sudan who have lost limbs or injured by unexploded ordnance since the demining began 15 years ago, and nearly 1,400 have been killed. The United Nations Service, UNMAS, has now reduced the explosive threat down to 27 square kilometers of land across South Sudan. But that represents progress of the 1,800 minefields recorded. There are only 184 left to clear, along with 128 non-cluster mission strikes. But it is time-consuming.
The minimum metal mines have minimum metal in them, which means we have to investigate every single piece of metal as we're clearing the ground. So it is a slow process. The average deminer clears 20 square meters in a day. That's an area 4 meters by 5 meters, not much bigger than a single room.
Despite the challenge, UNMAS expects to clear all remaining minefields, cluster munition strikes, and battlefields within 6 years by 2026. However, the chairperson of South Sudan's National Mine Action Agency says to accomplish that, villagers need to play a part when they find any suspected explosives.
The mine action business is not only for those who are working in it. It is a collective responsibility for the nationals, citizens have to report whatever they see.
Enemies cautions that even after all the known minefields and cluster strike areas and battlefields are cleared in South Sudan, it could take years, even decades, to find and eliminate remnants of yet undiscovered explosive. But every landmine or explosive they destroy means one less possible casualty from this deadly legacy of conflict. Sheila Poni for VOA News, Magui County, South Sudan.
2019 has been a difficult year for the citizens of Mozambique. The Southern African nation has suffered through a violent, disputed election campaign, 2 devastating cyclones, a shadowy insurgency, and an ongoing corruption scandal. As the country looks towards 2020 with a major multi-billion-dollar ExxonMobil natural gas deal pending, can this fractured nation be reunited? VOA's Anita Powell reports from Johannesburg.
A violence-plagued, hotly contested election, a mysterious insurgency, and 2 deadly cyclones plagued Mozambique this year. But a historic ceasefire deal between the government and opposition and a visit from the Pope also spread messages of peace and healing. 2019 has been a whirlwind year for the Southern African nation, and analysts say the plot will only thicken in 2020.
And of course, all of this takes place against the backdrop of this expected massive incoming windfall, which will come in the form of revenues through the liquid natural gas deposits up in northern Mozambique. So, you know, this is a contestation not just for political power in Mozambique. This is also a contestation for the control over what could be a vast reserve of wealth for the country in the next 20 years. So really the stakes are only going to get higher from here as well.
Mozambique's opposition claimed massive fraud in the October re-election of President Filipe Nyusi, which authorities deny. But the shadowy Islamist insurgency brewing in the rural north is also a main concern, says the Democratic Movement of Mozambique's Lutero Simango.
We are facing so many problems. We are facing the problem of militarization that is taking place in the north of Mozambique. I'm saying the Cabo Delgado province. And at this moment that we are speaking here, we are having militarization in the center of the central country in Mozambique, in the region of Sofia and Manica.
Observers worry that the contested election may drive Mozambicans further apart. But the ruling Mozambique Liberation Front, Frelimo, won 73% of the votes this time, compared to under 52% in the last polls. Masterson says that shows Frelimo still has a great deal of support, though there are concerns about the numbers.
I think that the problems really started once we saw the aggregated numbers of the registration there, which really set the platform for an election where distrust was high, concerns about the procedural and the technical aspects of the elections were elevated.
Opposition politician Simango, who claims the poll was not free and fair, puts it a bit differently.
When the people's will is not respected, when the people's will is not valued, when the people's will is not taken into consideration, you are creating a situation of an illegitimate government.
Frelimo has held power since 1975, but was also one of the key brokers in the August peace deal that brought an end to decades of conflict. And that's a message that even the Pope touted when he visited the nation in September as part of a 3-nation Africa tour. Peace, reconciliation, and hope. 3 things that Mozambique badly needs to get through this trying time. Anita Powell, VOA News, Johannesburg.
We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, a closer look at the 8th annual Embassy Showcase, Winternational. We'll be back.
I'm Clara Frank, and here's what's trending. While in the UK, Kenyan-Nigerian sisters Natalie and Samantha Mwedekele realized that there was an opportunity to create an African brand around the global gourmet burger trend. They also knew that their strategic edge would be the use of the extensive range of flavors and spices they picked up from their mother as children, as well as leveraging on their blended cultural heritage for unique branding. The sisters described their restaurants as a fusion of cultures and a celebration of Africa through the medium of food. And in other food fusion news, there's a culinary cultural explosion going on in Hollywood. The Japanese-Italian fusion dining trend combines foods from both countries to seamlessly create new combo cuisine tastes. The trend appeals to the many different palates in this melting pot city. Black Ship, in the heart of West Hollywood, is one of the area's most popular Japanese-Italian fusion restaurants. The restaurant creates different combinations and interpretations of flavors, such as arancini made with fried rice, egg, and soy sauce. And finally, this is the Loki, a fully 3D printed car concept from the Berlin-based company Big Rep. Even the tires have been printed, setting it apart from previous 3D printed car projects. You won't see it on the road anytime soon, though. The Loki is just a prototype at this stage. But according to Big Rep, it can point to the future where vehicles are created in large 3D printing machines instead of standard factories. The company says 3D printing could bring advantages to the industry in the future. One example, vehicles could be customized instantly. And that's what's trending today.
U.S. President Donald Trump was assured of a place in history this month when the U.S. House of Representatives voted to impeach him over his efforts to pressure Ukraine to investigate political rival Joe Biden. Although Trump is likely to be acquitted in an impeachment trial early next year in the Republican-controlled Senate, the political fallout from the impeachment drama could be a factor in the 2020 presidential election. Here's VOA's national correspondent, Jim Malone.
Please welcome the 45th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
In times of trouble, President Trump can always count on the warm embrace of his political base. Even as the House voted to impeach him, Trump lashed out at Democrats at a rally in Michigan.
You are the ones interfering in America's elections. You are the ones subverting America's democracy. We did nothing wrong, nothing whatsoever. This was just an excuse.
Article 1 is adopted.
House Democrats said they impeached Trump because they could not ignore the president's attempts to enlist Ukraine's help in his re-election bid in 2020. Maryland Congressman Steny Hoyer.
This impeachment asks whether we are still a republic of laws, as our founders intended, or whether we will accept that one person can be above the law.
The president's chances of surviving impeachment are much brighter in the Senate, where Republicans are poised to acquit him in a trial, including Majority Leader Mitch McConnell.
This particular House of Representatives has let its partisan rage at this particular president create a toxic new precedent that will echo well into the future.
Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer said his party will press the case.
I have little doubt that if we tell the president that he can escape scrutiny in this instance, he will do it again and again and again.
Democrats and Republicans expect impeachment to be a factor in next year's presidential election, says Julie Pace.
It's just a huge unknown. Both parties think that this could play to their favor, and privately both parties think it could work against them. But we just haven't been in this situation before where you have an impeachment and then that impeached president running for re-election.
The impeachment saga has consumed Washington in recent months. But voters have short memories, warns University of Virginia expert Larry Sabato.
This is going to be much less significant by next November than people think. It's going to seem like an eon past. And that means other controversies, other issues The two candidates, Democrat and Republican, will dominate the election, not impeachment.
Public opinion polls show the country remains sharply divided on impeachment, and the lengthy process in the House did little to alter that dynamic, says analyst Capri Cafaro.
But I think what's happened with impeachment is that it really hasn't had any significant impact in changing minds. I think it has solidified the camp.
The Senate will take up the issue of Trump's fitness for office in January. But the ultimate verdict is expected to be rendered by U.S. voters in the election next November. Jim Malone, VOA News, Washington.
The 8th edition of Winternational has taken place in Washington, D.C. The event was billed as a commercial, cultural, and tourist showcase for diplomatic communities, businesses, and business people. Representatives from at least 63 embassies and more than 5,000 visitors gathered at this year's festivities. They came to discover art, business opportunities, and of course, food. Blanche Sanu filed this report, narrated by Heidi Adams Fitzpatrick.
Winternational takes place every year in the heart of the U.S. Capitol. Members of the diplomatic community gather in Washington to showcase the business and travel opportunities in their home countries. It's also a chance to promote their culture through art, food, and handcraft exhibits.
Winternational is a cultural showcase and a holiday market that we created about 8 years ago to bring together the diplomatic, the government, and the business communities all under one roof in the International Trade Center in the heart of the nation's capital at the Ronald Reagan Building.
And this year, Africa did not sit on the sidelines. Representatives from Malawi, Uganda, Cameroon, Cote d'Ivoire, Kenya, and others all took part.
I like it very much because this connects us with the whole world. It also helps us to know what people are interested in, to buy and promote a country. There's a lot of interest from people who want to buy stuff from Kenya, especially the necklaces, because of the powerful beads that they have. There are women who want waist beads because they love them, and they also want all these beautiful gifts for Christmas for their family friends.
For some, Winternational is a chance to find out more about countries they'd like to visit. For others, it's about discovering and appreciating different things about different cultures.
Je travaille pour l'ambassade de Côte d'Ivoire, ça fait 40 et quelques années. Et ça fait vraiment un plaisir, c'est une famille, c'est un très bon pays, tout le monde a visité. Nous avons des très belles choses à vous montrer.
And for those looking to talk business, Winternational is the perfect time and place to do just that.
I bought a fabulous record bag and some wonderful recycled earrings, which I think we should do more of our recycled clothing type things.
For Faith and Wanira, it's a chance to reconnect with their African roots. Enjoying authentic African food makes the event an even bigger treat.
We welcome the countries. It's so beautiful to have their arts, their pictures, and the love.
This is outstanding. I had never come to Winternational and to see so many embassies here, and I've had some of the best food from all around the world. And I just want to say to my African, brothers and sisters, welcome, welcome, welcome. I love you all, and I'm really having a wonderful time here today.
Organizers say Winternational began with just a handful of supporters in the diplomatic community. Today, it's grown into a truly vibrant international winter event with more than 60 embassies taking part.
Our thanks to VOA's Blanche Sanu for that beautiful report. Now, we end our show today with a message from Pope Francis as he ushered in Christmas celebrations for the world's 1.3 billion Catholics. The pontiff says the celebration of the birth of Jesus reminded humanity of how, quote, God continues to love us all, even the worst of us. The Pope celebrated a solemn Christmas Eve Mass in St. Peter's Basilica for thousands of people as hundreds of others watched on large screens outside. Francis used his sermon to urge his flock not to let their failings or that of the church lead them away from accepting God's love.
Christmas reminds us that God continues to love us, even the worst of us. To me, to you, to each of us.
He says, "Today, I love you for you're precious in my eyes." God does not love you because you think and act the right way. He loves you plain and simple. His love is unconditional. It does not depend on you. You may have mistaken ideas. You may have made a complete mess of things, but the Lord continues to love you. How often do we think that God is good if we are good and punishes us if we are bad? Yet, that is not how he is.
Pope Francis also touched on the controversies that have plagued the Catholic Church this year, including the decades-long clergy sexual abuse scandals and financial irregularities involving the Vatican itself. The 83-year-old Francis appeared on the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica Wednesday, where he delivered his annual Christmas Day speech to thousands of visitors in the square below. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, have a good evening.